Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Rasick. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my recalcitrant co-host, Chris Rasick. Today, we are joined by Sam, who is a busy mom of two kiddos, a wife, and is absolutely crushing the Amazon game. She sells over $300,000 a month on Amazon, according to the last screenshot that I saw on Twitter. And is on pace to hit 4 million in sales this year. And what we're going to do today is we're going to try to gain some insight into how Sam runs her business and has grown so quickly without taking massive loans, without taking huge risks, and by still being able to have family time. Sam, we've had several people ask for you by name to be on the podcast, which is a huge compliment. It's not something we get too often. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Hopefully the kiddos don't mind you taking us taking you away for a little bit.
Okay, yeah, it's no problem at all. I'm really excited to be here.
Good. So before we dive in, you guys know the drill. It takes us minutes to prepare for this show. If you find some value in this episode, do us a huge solid. Hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player and go in and leave us a review. The only way for us to tickle the algorithm is to get you to leave us a review and hopefully help us find a few new folks that we might be able to help. So, all right, Sam, let's dive right in because as you saw, we've got a ton of questions for you. And we want to figure out how you've grown your business while also just having a family life. And I saw that you just got back from what looked like a wonderful vacation. So we've broken this up into a bunch of sections, and we want to discuss sourcing. We want to discuss time management. We definitely want to go down the rabbit hole of cash flow. I know that's incredibly important for you. And we want to talk about operations a bit. But let's set the table just a little bit. We've covered that you've got littles at home. We've covered that you're married. And you've also, if I'm not mistaken, you moved in the past year, if I recall correctly. And you like to spend weekends at the beach. What is it that made you choose Amazon as the vehicle to start a business?
Okay, yes, I get that question a lot. It's always so hard for me to articulate because for me, I did not come from a reselling background. Amazon was my first exposure to kind of reselling, retailing, distributing, all of it was new to me. So for me, I kind of just stumbled upon it. One day, literally was at Walmart at the clearance shelf. Me and my husband, we saw these humidifiers and we were we heard of people who sell stuff on eBay. And we were like, let's just go ahead and try it. So, I spent the money, I bought it. And then I just spent, the next days and hours just figuring out how to list it and how to sell it. And somewhere in that line between where I just bought it and started listing my first items is when I really understood the concept and I just kind of ran with it.
Interesting. That's all. So you never sold I don't know, an old cell phone on eBay, or you never sold trading cards or anything like that? That's what we hear so many people do before they get into Amazon.
Oh yeah, totally not. I thought everyone on eBay was a scammer. I did not understand that reselling was a thing. Before Amazon, I thought Amazon sold me the products. I didn't know it was distributors and this whole, I did not know behind the distribution chain. And when I was exposed to it, it really opened my eyes and I saw that, okay, this is something that I could be really good at.
Fascinating. That's great.
Sam, hi. So you've grown really quickly. I on pace for 4 million. It is basically where we have you pegged. I know I saw a screenshot on your social media, which any listener should go check that out to see just the incredible pace that you're growing at. I want to talk about what the business model is. Are you currently doing your first? Sounds like your first item was a humidifier retail arbitrage. Are you doing a lot of retail arbitrage, or are you focusing on online arbitrage? Any wholesale mixed in? What's the mix look like for you?
Sure. So I only really did RA right at the beginning. Like OA was sustainable for me. Like I really did start when I was 6 months pregnant and I had like a 1.5-year-old when I started. So I like driving to the stores was not like realistic for me to bring the kids with me. It was like screaming in the stores. So OA was the only thing I could realistically do. And I always did it at nighttime with around my scheduling because all the kids were sleeping. My husband was sleeping. It was like I had alone time to actually learn this new thing. And it grew into this huge OA business. Like I talk about how I have wholesale accounts. I have very few actual like traditional wholesale accounts. I run like an OA wholesale model. So like most all my OA accounts allow me to place large bulk orders with them. And I'm like a known reseller to these normal websites that people order from. And they just allow me to order that way.
Nice. That's awesome.
Hey, so follow up on that. So it sounds like you kind of had a tight window when you first started. You got, very little kids. They obviously demand a whole lot of attention, married and all that. So you were doing it late at night when the kids and your spouse were sleeping. I've had a theory that I always thought starting part-time is kind of a hack because you have such small windows and you have to get so much done in such a small window because the rest of your life is breathing down your neck, essentially. Do you agree with that? Or what do you think starting part-time or kind of fitting it into the time that you had? Can you talk about if that was an advantage for you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Time blocking is an advantage. Like if you had 12 hours to do something, you'll take all 12 hours. But if you only have 30 minutes and like this is my only chance I get to do this and you put your full attention towards it, you'll be able to do it much quicker and much more sustainably that way. Cause then the time savings you have from that day will just be applied to every single task each day afterwards. So it's kind of like multiple. It's like, how when you multiply your money, it's just the same with time. Like your time just kind of multiplies.
Yep. Awesome. So you're active on Twitter, and I know that you've you reach out. You've been on other podcasts. You've been on I've seen you on YouTube and things like that. I'm curious, how has the Amazon community kind of helped you in your business? And then I've got a follow up to that.
Okay, yeah, the Amazon community is just like essential to my business. Like I said, I was not exposed to this, so becoming exposed and then learning how to filter out the people who tell you the correct information from the people who aren't is like the most important thing. So once you can filter through that and find the right people and like network with them and understand that they're honest people and they're doing it this way, and then you can just basically copy what they do, right? You're learning from example and you can learn so much more mistakes. Like a lot of my account health stuff, a lot of this stuff is learned through just networking online.
Nice. And how do you make time to build those relationships when you are so entrenched in the business and growing your business at such a quick pace?
Oh yeah. So like realistically, I am not a great person to network with. Like I knew this up front. Like when I joined networking groups, I was like, I can only get on for 20 minutes one day this week to actually talk to you guys. Like a lot of groups, that was not okay to be in it. So like for me, networking was more sporadic. I literally would reach out to sellers ahead of me at the stages I wanted to be at. And I would message them like very specific questions that were not like, not ungating or what ASIN should I buy. It was like very specific cash flow based questions, strategic planning behind the business. So that's kind of where my networking came in, is that I did not have a lot of time to hop on phone calls. So I didn't waste time doing that. Like I put all my time towards the money making abilities. And then when I had a few extra minutes when I needed help, I reached out to people and I just tried to provide as much value back as I could.
Beautiful. That's a huge tip that I don't think a lot of people listen to, is being very, very specific. It's very common to get these broad questions. Hey, I can't find anything to sell. Well, that's not super helpful to the person you want to help you. And I think you're much more likely to get a response if you are very, very specific. And if they can't answer you, like, people want to be helpful. So let's say, hey, you know what? I'm not sure. However, I know this person who could probably help you. So I love that.
You talk about filtering out the noise, and kind of refining to find the answers that you're looking for. Isn't it funny how so many people end up completely filtering out the seller forums, right? Like,
oh yeah, I never wasted any time on seller forums.
Yeah, and instead you go to a Twitter and you just build in public. Like, sorry, I know Andy Jassy is a regular listener. I apologize, Andy. We can work on improving the forums in our side session when we talk. But I always think that's funny. So do you have? So you said you started on a whim. and you kind of figuring out as you go along. Was there any kind of mentor or role model? Is there anyone that you kind of looked up to as even motivation?
Yes, when I first started, so I actually did, Werner and Miles course. So Flip for Miles and Fields of Profit. That's the only course, the only mentorship. Like I didn't buy their mentorship. I literally just bought their entry level course. That's the only type of thing I actually bought or paid for. And then everything else past that was kind of getting me into the Discords and just networking with other people. And like I said, just being very strict with my time and making sure that I was the one who actually learned the material that made the money, and then just keep putting all my time there. And once that was done, I would put it towards these other tasks, networking and figuring out the next step.
Nice.
So, and what, just out of curiosity, at what point did you take the course? Because you self-started, did you get a taste of like, oh my gosh, this works, this could be something, then you bought the course? Or when exactly did you pop education into the mix?
Yeah, right away. So I had we did not have a lot of money. Like I really put $2,000 from our bank account, like literally like all my LLC documents, that's, our buy-in to the business. So the $500 that I paid for the course was substantial, and I did it in that 6 weeks. So probably was my first money I ever made from Amazon. I put it directly to that because I realized like I wasn't like, I did not know what cash back was. Like I did not know what Rakuten was. Like I'm talking like everything was brand new to me. So just getting all that information, having someone online tell me this wasn't a scam was like all I really needed to kind of, go for it. Cause my whole life, like I just kind of assumed everybody was scamming online. And like, that's just the people who in my personal life, that's how they think about it. So I never thought to question it. So when I got exposure to it and I saw these people online doing it, it was like, just unlocked the door for me.
Awesome. So let's transition a little bit and let's talk a little bit about sourcing. Sourcing it's obviously it's the lifeblood of any business, any inventory based business and Amazon business, but it also happens to be the biggest bottleneck for like rookie and even sophomore sellers on Amazon. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the strategies that you use to source products for your business. Of course, you don't have to give us all the secret sauce, but just kind of general overview of how you source.
Okay, yeah. So I mostly do OA, like I mentioned before. So I really highly use Seller Amp. I do reverse sourcing. I do storefront stalking. I source websites by, using KPF. So keep a product finder. I filter down that way. And that's how I do the majority of my sourcing really. And like really sourcing makes the money. So that's where I put all of my time into. Like I don't have a VA. I never outsource anything. Like I never bought a leads list, a bullet list, none of that. So I've always found every single item I've ever bought. And it's like I learned all the lessons from all the bad buys very quickly since I was the one who made all the decisions.
Nice.
Do you employ like a test buy, and then do you analyze the results after that and then go deeper on the ones that work, or how does that, how to it kind of fold into replens? And what percentage are you buying the same product over again in your business?
Oh, very heavily. I'm not sure percentage, but majority when I go source now, I source through my own catalog basically because the replens, once you get so many items, replenishable, and right, this is going to be my second year going in. Like I've already done back to school, so I already have all that data from the year before, so I can source those items and then source the sellers who are still basically alive a year later because it's like a high turnover inventory. So finding those kind of storefronts and knowing how to identify them, really helps cut down the time with sourcing.
Yeah, definitely. We always talk about, our own personal database. The bigger, the better, and the more valuable it is. So I appreciate that. So can you share a little bit about your criteria? I think there's a big disconnect between newer sellers and people doing the volume that you're doing. I think kind of like a strict criteria really kind of chops the legs out from under new sellers. So I'm curious. So is there what makes you pull the trigger on a product, and is there anything you think scares new sellers away that maybe they shouldn't be scared of?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I'm very strict on my profit and margin and my ROI. So I really source by 15% profit margin, 35% ROI. I almost never go below that. Now, when I do go below it, it's for very fast selling items I can get a lot of. And now when I source, I'm very strict. So think of like investments, right? You don't go full port with your investments. So I don't do that with my Amazon catalog, right? I don't put in 90% of my buy or my spend power into one brand, one category, a few ASINs, right? I spread it out very wide between different categories. So when stuff happens, which inevitably happens, right? You have listings taking down, suppressions, all that kind of stuff, right? I'm not significantly impacted in my business that I can keep running it month to month. And then with the new seller part, I think a lot of sellers are really scared of competing competition. And for me, like competing competition is it's so hard to articulate. So it's really hard, like, because it really matters on your repricing strategies, on your buy cost. So if you have the right buy cost, it doesn't really matter how many people are on the listing for like 80% of listings, right? There's always going to be the 20% where people are like, you can't make a sale because it's just totally saturated. But like 80% of the time, you don't even need to worry about competition.
I like that. And I guess what you mean is as long as you can be competitive with the buy box, that you're probably going to get a rotation into it is what you're talking about, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, as long as your buy cost is where it needs to be at, it's more or less irrelevant if there's 100 people who jump on. And the larger you get, the longer you can hold inventory. So a new seller might have to sell out to like make debt, that like make the payments towards debt that they took on their business. Where a larger seller, I might just have to pay an extra dollar for inventory and hold out a little bit longer for that market demand to equal out.
Mm-hmm. I like that. What is it that makes you pass on a product to sell? What I mean by it, maybe it hits your ROI, requirements. Maybe it hits your margin requirements. But are there any little things that would make you say, you know what, I should probably pass on this, even though it ticks all these other boxes?
Anything account health or listing related, right? I won't mess with any of that. Any product that's not listed correctly in the catalog, any brand that I see that IPs on other listings, I typically won't mess with, right? If Amazon or another seller's 80% or more on the buy box, right? Like I won't compete with them, right? That's competition I just would not deal with.
So let's talk about this is the part that I'm most fascinated in. Let's talk about scaling. You've grown your business pretty fast. Can you walk us through the stages or the levels of building an Amazon business and what it takes to get to each level? And maybe we could chop it up into starting from 0 to 50,000 a month, and then 50,000 to the pace that you're on now.
Okay, yeah, it's just so significantly different. And that's why it's hard networking, because sometimes you'll network with really large sellers and they'll have been at their level for years and they kind of forget what it took to get from that 0 to 50. 0 to 50 is really, really hard time commitment. You're going to put in way more hours, way more time, weeks and weeks and weeks of staying up, learning all of the ins and outs of the business, right? Learning your cash flow, learning, structuring LLC, all the stuff that no one wants to talk about. You have to learn to like stay alive. And then after you hit the 50K, right? When you start hitting 100K a month, right? You're able to use your own catalog. You're able to use your own resources to replenish your items, right? You're a bit more stable as long as you're cash positive, right? If you funnel debt to get to 100K, right, you could be running into the ground, a couple months later. But as long as you're positive on your margin and you're actually net positive cycling your cash flow, like at that point, you're just, you're kind of like just coasting, in my opinion, until you decide to grow to that next level, because you can just keep using your own profits in the business to like afford the business to keep going, to keep growing.
So we're big believers in the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. And you've already mentioned it. You've already mentioned 80-20 once. Is there an 80-20 in your business? And has that 80-20 changed at all as you've grown?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, sourcing, that makes you money. So that's always going to get the most amount of time. But I mean, sourcing does not take me a lot of time anymore. Like I explained in the beginning, you have to learn all the filters. You got to learn all the brands and stuff like that. And now I can just eyeball products. Like sometimes just looking at the Keepa, you just know that that's a good product. And I know exactly how to reach out now. So it might have took me 80% in the beginning, maybe more. 99% of my time in the beginning was directly placed on having to learn how to make the money. And now it doesn't even take 20% of the day going in and placing the orders and actually making the money, right? That other part of the day is all the stuff that keeps you alive, like account health, cycling your cash flow, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about sweat equity before, and how many hours you put in, especially that first stage, 0 to 50,000. Now that you're at the scale that you're at, have you brought on a prep center to do some of the work for you? Are there any VA team members that you use in your business? And then I do have a follow-up on that.
Okay, sure. So I'll kind of like bring it back there a little bit. So like from 0 to 50, right? It was all of this input in your time to get there. And I outsourced at that time to a prep center, like almost 100%, because we moved and because I needed that extra prep time to learn. Once I learned and I was confident in doing that, what I did is I brought all of my prep back into house, which a lot of people think is insane, but it would sweat equity, right? Right. I grew without taking like an excessive amount of debt. So the way that I could increase money, right? I'm not making any money prepping my items, but I'm making my margin more substantial in my business. As long as I source by 15% margin always. And then I got the prep as a bonus add-on to my 15%. So I got that $1.25 a unit and I started doing, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 units from our home. That kind of sweat equity got us into where I don't have to, use this insane amount of debt, right? Where I could be cash positive in such a short period of time. And it was so hard because it's just really difficult to completely outsource and then bring it all back to your house. Like all the stress of the boxes and labeling. And it's just like, no one wants to do it. But like I sat down with my husband, I was like, this is what we're going to do. Because this is how we get to freedom, basically.
Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co-host Chris Rasick has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show. When you brought that all back in house, were you making sure to only source from places where you could use your sales tax certificate, or were you paying sales tax on some of the items, and it's just still made sense, or how did that work?
Majority of the items, we did get a significant decrease in sales tax. Some of them I do still pay sales tax on, but not like excessive, right? Like the sales tax was always less than what the prep center would charge, right? So like think anything under like $27 was coming here would be cheaper, even if we pay tax on it to prep it ourselves to get that cash flow. But like I was insane. Like I'm not joking. Like we moved, and when we moved into our new house, like we had boxes everywhere, and I withdrew all my prep back to my house. Like it was like we failed for months. Like at prep, like it was like we have to prep 5,000 units, and it was like fail every single week until the week we finally made it. And then the week we made it, it was so easy after that because now we're caught up and we dug ourselves out that hole because it was so hard to just go from nothing to get 10,000 immediately. It was just like a struggle bus, right? We're like up to 2 a.m. prepping our units. We're like, why are we doing this? Everyone else is just taking loans and outsourcing. Like that same people do that. And we were like, we really had to look at our budget and be like, this is what we're doing because we want to do it in a sustainable way. And this was the way that was easy for us to make money when we did not want to influx a bunch of cash into the business.
So now that you're on pace for 4 million, are you going to continue that way, or are there plans to maybe outsource a little bit later down the road, or what's the longer term plan?
Yeah. So I put outsourcing up on a platter. Like that's my overall goal, right? I'm a grinder to the day I die, right? I will always be like, you should do sweat equity into your business until you make it to that magic number where you don't need to do it anymore. And for me, outsourcing is going to happen one day. And I'm like fully prepared, right? I have SOPs. I have like, when I outsource, it's not going to be like I have one employee, right? It's going to be like an offload of all of this work that we've been doing. Yes, I would absolutely love to own my own prep center, but with distribution, like that's just such a hard barrier to get because I'm not willing to go move or be away from my family to actually set up the prep center or like run virtual meetings. So I'm probably 100% going to be at a prep center, paying them for their services to help me with units and just trying to use myself as a bulk person, right? My 15,000 units a month, try to squeeze in that little margin there to get my units a bit cheaper than normal.
So you brought up, you've got SOPs and things like that. I would imagine that to try to save as much time as you possibly can, you probably try to automate some repetitive tasks in your business so you can focus on the growth levers. If that's true, what are the things that you've automated so far?
Sure. I mean, everyone uses a repricer, right? That's technically automation into repricing, right? I manually go in and reprice at least once a week, all of my listings. I'm very quick at it now. A lot of my stuff is just being completely organized. So like my cases for reimbursement, like I don't use a reimbursement service, right? I do all of my own. I have them all collected. I have all of my original scripts. And what I'll do is I'll sit down for like one time block, maybe 2 to 4 hours, and I'll do every single case, every single cashback claim. I'll just do all the stuff I hate doing all at once for the whole month. So I'm completely caught up, and then I won't have to do it to the next month. But realistically, when I was growing, you have to do that stuff like daily or weekly for the cash flow to get in your business. But right now, like for me to take, 20 minutes a day to randomly do cases is like taking away from my workload, right? I have to like really time block it and put it in. And I have all the stuff already scripted. So it's a lot of copy and pasting and just repetitive tasks at this point.
Gotcha. Are you utilizing any AI, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, anything like that in your business at all?
No, I don't really need I don't really need AI for my cases, right? The cases are very straightforward. Like I'm just emailing customer support. When I reach out to distributors, it's more me, right? It's me personally. I don't have like a script that I send out or a VA, right? I'm actually reaching out. That's kind of my thing with them is, that I'm, a distributor, you get access to me is kind of my thing with those kind of accounts.
Perfect.
So Sam, we're getting to know you a little bit, and we're getting deep into the interview now. And you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but I'd love to hear the truth. Are you the person that does all the work on the group projects while everyone else sits back? You sound like you've
school?
got.
Oh yeah, in high school. Oh yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna do this on my own. I mean, maybe that's not the right thing to say, but you know how much time I saved? Like I was able to travel and do stuff in high school, and I actually did one of my 2 years of college was completely online. I just did it all online in almost no time. So then I could just, me and my husband, we actually went and traveled Asia and Europe and stuff. So it was super fun.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of all the slackers that show up on the last day to take full credit, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm not joking. Warner Miles course is the only one I've ever bought. I told my husband, it's like, I'm buying someone's homework. Like people want to buy my homework. Like I've never bought it before. And it was like the best thing I ever did. So.
So this is probably you got a firm grasp on a lot of parts of your business, but maybe cash flow might be the number one thing that that at least from my perspective, it feels like you've got a really good grip on. If you search your Twitter handle, search profile, you'll find the word cash flow there quite a few times.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Can you share in your own words what makes cash flow so important?
I mean, cash flow to me is math, right? It's basic math, but math isn't easy, right? Because when you go from 0 to 100K a month, right, it's a lot different than maintaining 100K a month. So cash flow is the ability to use your own revenue from your business to maintain your business growth without taking on debt. To me, is if you cannot if you cannot cycle your own money in a positive way, then you're never going to grow, right? You're always going to be reliant on debt, and you're never going to actually be the owner you want to be and actually have the kind of money you want. If you're not able to cycle that. And a lot of people, they'll take and I'm not like this huge against debt person, right? Like I use 0% APR cards, but I use them in a cash flow positive way that helps me, make sure I'm not over leveraged. I had to do that to go from 2000, right? There's no way to cycle. Even if you cycled 9 times, 2000 is only $7,000. So I did influx debt into my business at the beginning, but I did it in a cash flow positive way. And I was over leveraged there for a period of time. But now that I'm at scale, or even at month 5 or 6, I was never over leveraged because I found that line. And it's the line because in an inventory based business, you can cycle your inventory and you can be completely in the negative and not know it. If you're only selling 80% of your influx of cash into your business and you come that's why people got a business 3 months later and they'll be like, I was making all this money 3 months ago. And now they're completely under because they didn't take care of all their inventory correctly.
I mean, we don't do public math on the show, but it is nice that it really is just a math problem. But so for those of us who not only don't do public math, but really try to stay away from math in all parts of our life, what do you think some of the best tips are for managing cash flow in an inventory based business?
Oh, the best tips. I mean, you got to know your numbers, right? You got to know exactly what you're spending, exactly what you're selling, exactly what you're getting in, right? If you're going to let's just do an example. If you're going to take $10,000, 0% APR card and put it into your business, a month later, your revenue numbers better be at 20K. You better make sure you cycle that money enough and you did not get a whole bunch of stranded inventory on the side that you ignored and you kept growing because, your seller board told you made money, right? Because what'll happen is 2 months later, that debt right there that you didn't realize you were in the negative will just compound and then you won't have the money, basically, is what will happen.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the key word, compounding. You talked about it with your time getting started and the short windows that you had, and now we're talking about it again with cash flow. It's such a it's the eighth wonder of the world, Chris. Is that what they say?
That is what they say. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So back to Twitter, you do share quite a bit of gems on there. Specifically in a tweet on August 1st. You said cycling cash flow correctly will give you larger returns than taking on debt. And you alluded to that in my previous question as well. Can you expand on that a little bit? What exactly is cash flowing correctly?
Yes. So inventory based business, right? We're different than every other business, right? So you have to always make sure your inventory churn equals, how much debt or zero for cash flow. And I don't even know if I'm using cash flow correctly. Like, this is just how I internalize it and I speak it to myself. Is so like if I'm going to take any type of leverage into my business, and it doesn't have to be leverage, right? I filter in my own products, my own profits for my business. Is I need to make sure I'm actually making the margin I think I'm making within the appropriate amount of churn. So if I'm saying I'm supposed to get my money back every 8 weeks, like I got to make sure like 90% of my inventory that's happening to, because I have listing suppressions, you get listings taken down, you get this stuff happens. And what happens is you'll get 20K of products pushed to the side and you won't churn it fast enough. And then that will compound negatively towards your cash flow. And then you'll come back 3 months later, not actually have the money that you thought you were going to have to keep your business growing. Like you don't even have to be in debt. Like some people will do this too soon and they'll actually be in debt and like not be able to pay their cards. But like a bigger seller like me, you'll get stuck where you won't be able to grow, or you'll actually have used your profits for loss into your business because you didn't cycle it quickly enough.
So now you talked about you have a strict on the sourcing side. You keep very strict rules: 15% profit margin, 35% ROI. However, it sounds like you need to roll that inventory over as fast as possible. So how does that change? Do you have an aggressive liquidation strategy? Is it churn as much of the inventory as fast as possible at all costs, or how does it change as the inventory ages?
Oh yeah, well, absolutely not, right? If you turn your inventory fast at whatever cost, you're actually going to lose more money than if you just chilled out and like waited and took the margin, right? But from how I grew so fastly this year was I turned my inventory, I looked back at all my numbers. I actually did it 9 times this year, which kind of sounds outrageous if you think about the stock market. And that's kind of how I maintained it. But like now, like there's a balance, right? Profit always has to come first, because if you're going to sit here and just turn your inventory to churn it, to be like, I'm doing 9 times, I'm getting 2% on my card or whatever, like you're going to go out of business, because you need the actual margin to sustain the cash flow. Because even if you made $2,000 that month, if you are not able to churn that money and actually get it back a month later, like that's your ability to source, right? If you can't actually do your job and get the money back, then you're not actually growing, right? You're just funneling revenue numbers at that point.
What are your rules for like holding inventory versus like, for example, I've got a pretty hard rule that at day 60, I'm willing to go to a 0% ROI, 0% margin, all that good stuff. What is your rule as to when it's time to dump that inventory?
I don't have a hard and fast rule, right? If the product's been sitting in Amazon for 30 days, that's abnormal for 80% of my catalog. Is pretty good. Like I keep myself pretty spread out. I don't really go deep. There's a couple products I buy 60 days of. Most is 30 days. So if it's over 30 days, I'm looking at it and seeing what's going on. There's some products that I literally will hold for 4 or 5 months for the ROI that I want, which is like really bad with the new inventory storage fee. So I had some products that I was like, I should have sold for a loss 2 months ago and I would have saved money. So I'm still finding that balance there. And it's really hard because like even if you sell for 0%, you're actually selling negative with all returns and that kind of stuff. So like even getting down to like 5% margin is basically you're selling for negative at that point. So it's like really important to watch the products. And 60 days, I would say that's about realistic for me too, where I'll be like, okay, it might be time to cut this item. But I made a lot of those mistakes at the beginning and I went wide through every category. So those mistakes are less to me now, but when I make them, I don't have 10 anymore. I have 200 or 300 of one item. So it's like very significant to the cash flow and it's very significant to the margin. So I try not to like over leverage myself that way and let that happen too much, but it's like impossible, right? It's always going to happen.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned that, listings will get suppressed or, all kinds of things can happen. We know that death piles are really just profits going and sitting on a floor somewhere. So when that kind of thing happens and you can't get the listing fixed or you can't get the items back onto Amazon, what are you doing with that inventory to make sure that you can get some of your capital back?
Oh, I mean, I immediately withdraw that stock back to my house or to my prep center and I relist on another marketplace. I don't really have a death bin. And it took us a long time of filling to get there. So like we have a system every time the product comes in from Amazon that's returned or the death bin items come back in, right? They're taken photos of and emailed to me and I list them all at the same time later at night for time savings. And I do it that way, but they're all listed immediately, mostly all on eBay and Walmart, right? I don't really sell on any other platform other than those 3.
Perfect. So you recently talked a little bit about getting some net terms with a supplier. Can you share, because I mean that's a great way to help cash flow, and I'm wondering, can you share any tips on negotiating with suppliers to improve payment terms, or maybe even get your first payment terms, or pricing, and kind of how you expect that to impact your cash flow?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I'm new to the whole wholesale and this kind of net terms thing. So this was my first account. So it's repetition, right? I probably asked maybe 20 before this one actually gave me the account, and they gave me a $10,000 line with them, which, is okay. I don't even know if that's normal for a first line, but that's what I got. And then I would know that it's very important you maintain that relationship for 2 to 3 months, because I know that when you get one, it's easier to get other ones, because then they can look through your business credit and you can use them as a reference. So like, it's very important that, the one you get, I nurture that relationship, right? I'm making sure I'm always maxing out that line and always paying them on time, so that, I grow that trust with them.
Nice. What, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of terms were you able to negotiate? Is it 30 days, 60 days?
I actually got 90 days. I was so shocked. I didn't
Whoa.
even know I could ask for
Mm.
90 days. Like, I don't, like, honestly, I need to talk to someone to teach me how suppliers make money on these kind of relationships, because I don't really understand how I can get the product and sell it and pay them back before, they even get the money. It's super weird to me. It's like the opposite. I feel like they should want the opposite.
It does. I mean, because it's 90 days, same as cash.
I guess. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that's what they told me, 90 days. So I still don't even know. I haven't paid the first invoice. I don't really know if I can pay it with my credit card or if I have to wire money to pay it. So that's still
Yeah.
new for me.
My guess is they're probably going to want you to wire the money in some way, which you could use Melio or something like that and pay the processing fee. But I am curious. They must be floating it from their supplier to you, and maybe it just all makes kind of sense, and makes it out in the wash.
Oh yeah,
But I have
directly.
no
I've
idea.
been trying to get a brand direct account with this supplier, and I've been contacting all their distributors probably since January. And everyone's like, "Oh no, like there's enough people in this game." And I found one who let me in. I was like, "Thank you." Like, so they're ordering directly from the brand to my address. So I don't really know what they make margin on it, but I make my 15%. So I hope they make, their margin.
That's great.
So how do you decide? Let's talk about profit reinvestment a little bit. How do you decide how much of the profits to reinvest into inventory versus other areas of your business from
Sure.
a cash flow perspective?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew very quickly. So obviously I invest all profits. Now, when I say all profits, I pay myself my required minimum salary and I pay my quarterly taxes. I pay all the legal taxes that I have to on the profits. And then I put it all back in. I have the high yield business checking account that I hold that kind of money in so that I can pay, those kind of stuff. Other than that, like I said, I run a really tight ship. Like, it's me and my husband. I only have software. I don't have a VA. I'm not paying prep fees right now. So like, a lot of that profit, being able to spend it right away is the advantage to my cash flow. Because if I can get that extra, couple tens of thousands of dollars into the business, I can grow the margin on it, in 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks later.
So, and before we put a bow on cash flow, I'm curious. We've said it multiple times. Know your numbers. I love that you said it too. It is so important. My question is, where are you getting your numbers? Where do you find them? When you say you looked at everything, do you have a software that you use that provides all the data, or are you keeping spreadsheets, or what does the paperwork look like on your end?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So there's two parts to that. So I use Sellerboard primarily for day-to-day operations, right? All the fees get associated to the Asian. It's a very quick snap to, actually my profit. I put in all my direct buy costs. So actually cost of goods sold, the real ones by batch number into Sellerboard. So all my ASINs per day, I can see how they're doing, how many are selling. Now on the back end of that, like my official bookkeeping, that's QuickBooks, right? I run accrual accounting. So, we do the books like that. So I get the profit and loss statements, and that's going to be more like business compliance and like a monthly snapshot of where I was at the month before. Whereas Sellerboard is what I use actually day to day to reprice, replan, figure out the items. And then, I fall back on the compliance, obviously, because, that's like legally required for like this size of business. And then just to kind of make sure that my overall, profit is doing well with all the other weird expenses of the business.
Nice.
So let's transition a little bit to time management. You've got a lot of responsibilities, and I don't know if you mentioned you said your husband is home now. Does that mean he now is just working in the business, or just he works from home, and you've got your Amazon business as well?
Sure. Yeah. So my first 9 months, like when I grew to my first million, I did that literally all on my own with the kids and the dogs and the move. Like my husband was working 50 hours a week. He came home and he helped me with whatever, me being a crazy wife just threw at him. I was like, oh my God, I need help with this, right? Just like whatever he could do, like take my packages to UPS, whatever. And then in January this year is when he actually quit his full-time job and now he's home. And again, that was a big requirement to bring prep back into house because we might not make more money with him being home, but I did save that margin in my business and I was able to take basically that loan every month, right? It's not a loan, right? It was the money I saved on prep on 10, 15,000 units a month. I was able to take that and spend it right away and make profit on it. So we were able to make more profit that way from his job. And that's kind of where cash flow gets on that line where are you over leveraged or not? But I always made sure we were, not over leveraged when I started using these kind of strategies.
Nice. Now, how are you balancing, running and growing your business along with all the other responsibilities that you currently have?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's just time management. A lot of people are not going to they're going to want something very specific, right? But it's like learning how to manage your time correctly, right? I have my newborn, he's 1 now, and my 2-year-old, he's turning 3 this October. So, I have the potty training and everything going on at home. Like our kids are home, me and my husband are home. Like we got 2 dogs. So it's like really hard to schedule. But like for us, a big time for me is nighttime. And that works for me. So like every single night when my kids go to bed, 8 o'clock, I'm at my computer. And if my son comes out 50 times, right, my spouse is doing that for me, right? He's in the background. Like if I don't have time to cook, if I don't have time to do something because I have an IP complaint that day, like he has it, like he does all that, right? So like I got my back covered so that I'm able to get on and do the work that matters. And that's all that matters is every single day we do what actually makes us money. And then everything else, we just try to structure as best as we can until it goes well. And it took me, like you mentioned before, like I went on vacation, it took me 14 months of failure trying to do our time to be able to work up the time to be able to take, 9 days off of the business. And even then, like, it's not 9 days off, right? I'm on account health every day, right? I'm ordering my orders. Like it's at least 2 hours of intense work a day, even at this level. And it's like, it's just a trial and error. Like you just got to keep doing it until you get better at it.
So especially with scaling as fast and as well as you are, and then with the family and tight windows and stuff, how do you know when to turn it off? How do you know when when do you give yourself permission to actually clock out and switch to something non-business related? I find that that's kind of difficult in the self-employed world, because they're, the thing about a 9 to 5 is they've built that structure for you, and then once when you venture into something like this, you have to build your own schedule, and it could be, not only is it tough to figure out what to do, but there's always something to do. So I'm curious, how do you know when you're allowed to clock out for the day?
Yeah, it was very hard for me. I really struggle with that, right? My husband, he is like, sometimes at nighttime, he has to come in at 2 a.m. and be like, you have to go to bed, crazy woman. Like you cannot work anymore. Like you need 6 hours of sleep tonight. Like the kids are waking up. So like there's a balance there. But me and my husband, like, we did all the fighting and stuff when we went through this, right? Like all the stress, like there's boxes everywhere, there's kids poop. Like we did all that and we made it through it. And it's like now when we relax, it's like if it's 5 to 8 every night, right? I time block my family time. So like when I say I go to the beach on Saturday, like it might be 6 hours or 4 hours. Like I'm completely detached from work. It's all I do. You can live more in that period of time and have a better time than working a 9 to 5 and coming home and like being overstimulated. Because you can train yourself to do the business work and not be overstimulated by it on your personal time. And it's just like a balance there, and you're just gonna have to find it. And it's so hard to like articulate, because like for me, it's time blocking at nighttime. Every single night, I do the kids' books. Every single night, 5 to 8 o'clock, we do dinner. We go on a family walk. I play with the kids. Like it doesn't matter if there's 5 IP complaints, Sam. Like you're doing that with your family. And then I get on the computer and I fix the stuff afterwards. And I only have so many hours in the day. Right now, I have to do it all in 2 hours or whatever it takes. And you just train yourself by repetition, trying over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's okay. Shit is totally acceptable here. The only word we outlaw is the F-bomb.
Okay.
Just other than that, we don't mind. So I'm a huge fan of outsourcing. I don't do nearly enough of it, in my opinion. But like I've recently, I've hired someone to handle a lot of personal tasks so that I can disconnect a little bit better and not worry about making the appointment or doing this or that. Are you outsourcing any tasks at home so that you don't have to, think about the house being clean or, maybe an appointment being made or anything like that? Or are you thinking about it?
Yes, I 100% wish I did. The only thing we outsource is we have a cleaner who comes every 2 weeks. It's like $125. They do great. They just like, take care of everything that we miss. Like it's so hard to just vacuum and stuff, when you're doing all of this kind of stuff. So like for me, outsourcing is on the pedestal, right? I'm very extreme. Like I'm like grind until you make it to exactly where you want to be and then chill out and buy back your time. But like, some people will sit here and say like, oh, I make $100 an hour checking out. Like I shouldn't be doing this, menial task. But like, to me, it's like extreme is you should be doing it all until you hit your actual goal because right. There's a line there where if you can do it all and not fail, right. I always hit my spend. Like I've never not made my revenue numbers a month or made my profit I wanted to. Right. And if I hit that month where I can't make it, right, that's when you outsource, in my opinion. And that's very extreme, I know, but I can't not wait to the day I outsource. I'm going to get back so much time. It's going to be glorious. Like it's going to be more normal, like how a normal business runs. Right.
Mm-hmm. So you got your husband, you folded him in. What is the appropriate age for a child to handle a tape gun? When do you put the kids to work? Really?
I don't know. Whatever's legal by the IRS, I'm going to say on this because I don't really know. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, my kids are young. Like, I mean, he's not even 3 and I have a 1-year-old. So it's more like danger with all the paper. Like, are they going to eat it and choke? It's more the worry in this house.
Yeah, I was more worried with the 5-finger discount. It's just the inventory sits around. It only takes a few minutes and a toddler sees something, especially.
I got it all completely organized. All of our product does not come inside the house for our sanity, right? It's in the garage. We have shelving, like it's all up there. Like I cannot live with product around the house. I would lose my mind.
You have grown very quickly. You went from 0 to 60 very, very fast. And there are obviously going to be some bottlenecks in your growth. What's the 1 or 2 biggest bottlenecks that you've experienced as you've grown your business, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, that's hard. I feel like everything is a bottleneck when you first start out. The big thing is capital. All new sellers are always like, if I just had more money, I could make more, right? And that is true in inventory-based business. But like for me, it was really hard not to like take out like all of these credit cards because everyone online is like take out 4 or 5, like go crazy. Like for me, that was very difficult because that's me. Like I'm more impulsive, right? I'm more confident in my ability, but to like sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to use my actual profits to grow the business in conjunction with, the kind of debt. Cause I did take that kind of stuff in the beginning to grow, but like now I don't need to. So it's like really just kind of sitting where I'm at and being like, okay, I'm going to sit here for 3 or 4 months, collect this cash, get into an account, make sure, I'm very stable, make sure, if I got Section 3, if I got anything like that prevented me from working, like we are set. Like I don't have to be over leveraged. And then it's going to be hitting that next goal where I can actually scale again. And it's really hard for me to sit still because I'm like sitting at 300K and I'm like, I could be at 500K. I'm like, let's go. But it's like, chill out 2 or 3 months, collect the cash, make sure the inventory is turning correctly, make sure everything's going well. And then it's like, then, Q4, I can go wild.
So, you've talked a little bit about long-term goals. Eventually you want to outsource everything. Although the indications of the type of motor that you got, I'm not sure you're going to be able to. I would imagine you're going to jump into something else, full speed ahead. But talking in general, like what are your goals for the next year with your Amazon business? And then what do you see kind of the future of reselling in a broader sense over the next 3 to 5 years?
Sure. Yes. I mean, my goal obviously this year is to hit 4 million, right? I'm not 2 years in. So like to hit 4 million sustainably for me and to be able to churn that again next year is going to be where I'm at, right? Maybe even 6 to 8 million. Like I'm not really sure with OA and wholesale. I just know that I'm never going to give up OA because, you get all the extra cash back and all the credit card rewards and all the bonus spend on top of your 15%. So it's just like really good, buffer for a business. I would love to try private label, honestly, which if you asked me a year ago, I'd be like, I have no interest in that. But now, like, since I understand the back ends of Amazon system, like that would appeal to me. And, I really just want to run my store. And I do not know my goal number at this point, because to me, it's about leverage and where I'm comfortably putting in enough money a month to maintain my store versus the risk, because there's always risk with Amazon, right? Like I said, with listings and your account getting taken away. And like, even if you do everything perfectly, there can always be something that prevents you in Amazon. So like mitigating that risk between myself, business and personal, and not like over leveraging and putting too much of our eggs into this, since we're both this is both basically what we do, right? This is our business. So it's going to be finding that line for me in the next couple of years. So, potentially expanding into wholesale, private label, into my Amazon business, keeping my revenue in check, making sure that I'm using profit to grow the business. I'm not over leveraged personally is where I really want to be at.
As we've gotten to know you a little bit, it seems very obvious that maybe you're a little type A, and that you run real fast. You got high RPMs, high energy. Have you always been that way, or has it been something that you've trained yourself to be through the years?
Yeah, I think I've always been that way. Like, I know I talk fast. I really try to slow it down. I'm like 100 miles a minute person. Like, I type like 200 words a minute or something crazy, right? Like, I'm really I really am energetic like this. It's not like a show for me. But like when I worked 9 to 5, like I got to the point where I could not do it anymore. Like I literally quit my job with my kids. And I was like, I'm not going back, and like, I want to breastfeed at home. Like, this is what I want to do. So like that kind of stuff was not good for my mentality, my personality. So when I found this kind of business where I can pour an unlimited amount of time into it and make basically an unlimited amount of money back, right? I can find these ways to actually, and it's not all about money, right? Money to me is being able to buy time with my family, right? When I talk about obtaining money, it's to literally buy back our freedom so we don't have to work. We can do whatever we want to do, right? I can go take my son swimming in the middle of a work day. Like I don't have to put him in daycare. Like that's what I talk about when I talk about attaining money. But like just this kind of business enabled me to do that. So for my personality, this business is exactly what I need in life, right? I like doing new things every day. I like learning. I love learning. So the ability to do this, I can switch categories. I can do whatever I want every single day. It's just perfect for me.
Yeah, perfect. I like that. I like that, buying back your time. I explain it to my kids as in there are real problems, and then there are money problems, and we want to make enough money that we never have to worry about the money problem. The something breaks down, we don't want to do something, those things we can just pay for it and it's taken care of, and we can enjoy our time, compared to like real problems and life throws at us. But yeah, I'm sure that there's a ton of people who ask you for advice. What is the one or two pieces of advice that you would give to new sellers just getting started on Amazon?
Yes. I mean, I get a lot of the family, people who've already, are in jobs, who already have kids. Like I attract those kind of people to me because, I have the kids myself. So like for those people, it's like going to be time management. Like, and there's not like a balance when you grow as an entrepreneur. Like everyone out here is like, you can outsource at month 3 and make these outrageous amount of money. It's like, there's a balance there where you have to sacrifice your time with your family for a short period of time, right? It might take you a year to do what you want to do in this kind of business, but a year, if you live 80 years of your life, like that's so insubstantial, right? You just got to remember, you got to zoom out and remember that you're doing it for you and your family, and people in your life and coworkers and stuff like that. Like they might not understand you, but it doesn't matter. It matters to you and your family and to get where you want to go at. And then the second part of that is just being able to identify wrong information online. There's gonna be people who do a lot of shady stuff in this kind of space, and identify like you have to buy labels from Amazon or VQual, and you have to, you pay your taxes on your Amazon business, and you have to do things these specific ways in a legal way. And just being able to identify that between reality and like not making those wrong moves, and like you'll be fine.
So you mentioned it that a couple different times, cash flow positive, to kind of echo back to cash flow. What's your best advice? Like if somebody came to you, a seller that didn't quite have it figured out, and they said, you know what, I over leveraged, I made the mistake. What's your best advice to a seller that came to you and wanted to get cash flow positive? How can they turn things around?
Oh, that's hard, because my whole thing is like never get out of cash flow positive, because if you do, it's like dig yourself out the grave kind of. But if you're in that kind of situation, my best advice would be to become obsessed with your margin, like become obsessed with cash back, credit card points, finding ways in your business to make money. Because if you've already taken money that you've over leveraged, the only way to pay it back, like, and use this business, is going to be to actually make money on the money you took out. And that's like a fine line between, maybe that person would make more money if they took on a third job. Like it's really hard when you're over leveraged, but like you gotta fix the problem, right? If you get over leveraged, you only have to fix the problem once, and you got to identify the problem, right? Because being over leveraged is, it's very hard to identify in time. So if you identified it before it became a problem, like you can fix it. If it's after a problem, you need to see what was wrong in your systems. You got to fix that in your systems. And you only got to fix it once with your over leverage, because you're never going to make that mistake again, because it's going to be very painful for you to dig yourself out.
Mm-hmm. You said something there that a lot of people, I think, might gloss over. That is, I think, a powerful statement. You said maybe you have to take on a third job. Sometimes that is the right answer. Maybe it is, you need to have some more capital contribution from yourself, and you do need to take on a job. It doesn't necessarily need to come, from the business, although that would be the best. But yeah, and anyway, sorry, that was it's something we haven't heard too many people say before. I like that. We are big fans of getting 1% better. If you're a fan of James Clear or anything like that, are there any things that you are trying to actively improve on right now?
In my business, or like personally, or both?
Either. Oh, yeah, both.
Either. Okay, that I'm trying to improve on now. I'm always trying to improve on cash flow, which I know makes me sound like this crazy numbers person, but I am a crazy numbers person. Like, I calculate my money every single day. So to me, if you can have a really great cash flow, right? Cash is king, read any books about that kind of stuff, right? Having the ability to know the knowledge and act on opportunity becomes present. Like, that's what I want to be, right? I want to have the cash stacked up in the bank so that I can take action on those opportunities where I can actually land a large distributor. I can actually start wholesale or private label and do those kind of things. Like, I want the ability to be able to do that.
And you mentioned books, which is another one of our favorite things. So I'm curious, recently or maybe over the journey overall, are there any books or podcasts or blogs that have had a significant impact on you?
I'm trying to remember back in the beginning, because right now I'm at the point where, like I said, I'm kind of straddling my goals. So I kind of took a bit of step back this month to take time with family, right? Like, I sacrificed a lot. So we did like a vacation, and I'm getting more in with the kids, getting more into time before I'm making more money. But like in the beginning, I read, what did I even read? Like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read The Slight Edge, books like that. Maybe they're very beginner friendly, but like for me, I was never exposed to that. Online, right? I just kind of network with sellers on Twitter mostly. I mean, I watched Clear the Shelf podcast when I first started out this one, and I watched Buy Box Bandits, and those were so fun for me as a new seller. Like, whenever I tried to really learn something and be like, I wasn't sure something was right, I always came to this kind of show to listen, because this was kind of like the authentic to me versus some of the other information online. So I always just kind of reached out to people who were more authentic online and were not like, trying to be these crazy people.
Nice. People are surely going to want to give you a follow or anything like that. Where is the best place for people to find you on the internet?
Yep. So I'm literally just Sam FBA. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. That's literally where I'm at right now. I'm doing a free YouTube, and try not to judge me. Like, I just got the microphone. Like, my YouTube's, this is my first time ever, breaking out into this kind of thing. So I'm just trying to release appropriate information, give back to community, because this community changed my life. So I'm just Sam FBA.
Perfect. Well, yeah, and don't worry, YouTube will get better. It's just like Amazon. It's all about the reps. And we'll make sure to put everything in the show notes. We'll put Twitter and Instagram and YouTube as well. Sam, we always try to close an episode with a quote of the week, and I thought this one was incredibly fitting. This is not attributed to anybody, unfortunately, so the author is unknown. But the quote of the week is: "Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king." I don't know. It sounds like something Charlie Munger would say, but this was not attributed to him. So, Sam, thanks so much for hanging out with us for this past hour. I appreciate it. I think there's a ton for people to get from this episode, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, guys, make sure to hit like to protect your own cash flow, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.